used to believe that love could fix anything. It sounds naive now, almost childish, but back then it was my truth. Ethan came into my life when I was 27, at a time when everything felt possible. I just opened my small art studio on Westfield Street, a sunlit place that smelled like paint and hope. I taught classes to children in the mornings and worked on my own pieces late into the night. Life wasn't easy, but it was mine. Then he walked in. He said he wanted to commission a portrait for his mother's birthday. But the way he looked around with curiosity and warmth told me he was interested in more than art. His voice carried the kind of confidence that makes you feel seen, and for the first time in years I let someone in. He told me he admired how passionate I was, how I lit up when I talked about my work. He said, "People like you, Amara. You're made of something the world tries to steal." I didn't know how prophetic that would sound later. By the end of that month, I'd fallen in love. Ethan made me believe we were building something real. He'd bring me coffee, surprise me with late-night dinners, whisper about our future like it was already written. He was the dream I didn't know I was allowed to have. But dreams, I learned, can be the cruelest lies. Started small. He'd ask to borrow my car because his was in the shop. He forgot his wallet at home. He needed help paying for business registration fees, just until the clients pay in. He always promised to return everything, and I always said yes, because that's what love looked like to me: trust, partnership, teamwork. When he told me about his new business idea, a design firm that would change how people see art in commercial spaces, I was in awe. He wanted to combine my artwork with his marketing experience. We'd call it Lumos. It sounded perfect. He said, "You'll be the creative heart. I'll handle the numbers." I sold my studio to fund the launch. Every brushstroke, every late night, every piece I'd created, gone. But I told myself it was for something bigger, something we shared. When the documents came, I signed without hesitation. He smiled, kissed my forehead and said, "You won't regret this." But 3 months later, he started locking his laptop. He stopped showing me invoices. He worked late, always for us. And I believed him. Until I couldn't. The morning I lost everything, the sky was too beautiful for what was coming. The sunlight slipped through the curtains, touching his empty side of the bed. His phone was gone. His clothes. His laptop. I called his name, half expecting him to step out of the bathroom. But silence has a way of confirming what your heart already knows. On the kitchen counter sat a single envelope. Inside were my house keys and a note with 2 words, "I'm sorry." I ran to the office. The locks had been changed. My name had been erased from every record. The company, the funds, even the logo I designed, all under Ethan's name now. When I confronted the lawyer, he said, "You signed over full rights, Ms. Lewis. Your name isn't listed anywhere." My stomach dropped. Those papers I'd signed, the ones Ethan told me were standard partnership agreements, were transfer documents. He hadn't just left me, he'd stolen me. That night, I sat on my floor surrounded by unpaid bills and empty canvases. I never felt so hollow. I tried calling him over and over, but he'd changed his number. It's strange how betrayal sounds like silence, how it smells like cold coffee and paper lies. That was the night Amara Lewis died, and the woman who would rise in her place was born. Grief is slow. It doesn't destroy you in one blow. It eats away, piece by piece. I stopped painting. I stopped eating. My friends tried to reach out, but shame kept me isolated. Everywhere I turned, Ethan's name was glowing. Articles called him a rising star in modern design. Lumos was thriving. My art, the same pieces I'd created, were displayed under his brand. I watched interviews where he smiled into cameras and said, "I had the privilege of working with some incredible creative minds." He never said my name. I thought about confronting him, but who would believe me? I was the ex-girlfriend, the emotional artist, the woman who signed the wrong paper. I took a job waitressing at a small cafe across town. Every time I carried a tray past laughing customers, I reminded myself, breathe. Every night I'd stare at the wall and whisper, you can't end here, Amara. Because somewhere deep down, even in the ashes, I wanted to rise. I just didn't know how yet. I met Ryan on a Thursday afternoon. He sat in the corner booth, always with a book and a cup of black coffee. He never looked rushed, never impatient. There was something still about him, like he carried silence on purpose. For weeks, he was just another customer. Then one day, when I dropped a tray and shattered 3 mugs, he helped me pick them up. You okay? He asked softly. I nodded, embarrassed. Seems like life's been throwing mugs at you for a while, he said with a crooked smile. It was the first time I'd laughed in months. He became a quiet constant. Small conversations, brief smiles, the kind that didn't demand anything. Then one evening after the cafe closed, he waited outside. You don't belong here, he said. There's something bigger about you. I wanted to tell him he was wrong, that I'd been broken beyond repair. But his eyes didn't flinch. They just believed. That night, for the first time since Ethan left, I painted again. And when I saw the colors bleed across the canvas, I realized I was still alive. There's something sacred about a blank canvas. It doesn't care who you used to be. It just waits, ready to hold whatever you have left. That night after meeting Ryan, I painted until dawn. My hands trembled, my eyes burned, but with every stroke, I poured out the poison Ethan left in me. I painted loss, humiliation, rage, and something else I hadn't felt in a long time, defiance. When I stepped back at sunrise, I saw a woman on the canvas. Her face was fractured, but her eyes were burning gold. Scared me, because I realized it was me. I hadn't seen that woman in months, maybe years. Ryan came by the cafe later that day. You look different, he said, sipping his coffee. Did I? He smiled faintly. Yeah, like someone who remembered she's still breathing. I wanted to tell him that the act of painting felt like rebellion, that I finally felt my pulse again. But I just nodded. Some things are too fragile to name aloud. That night, I hung the painting above my bed. It was the first time my apartment didn't feel like a grave. 2 weeks later, the cafe owner, Mrs. Delgado, asked if I'd decorate the shop walls with some of my art. It'll make the place warmer, she said. And maybe someone will buy one. I hesitated. I didn't want my name associated with the world again, not after everything Ethan had done. But she insisted, so I signed them simply A. Lewis. Within a month, one of the paintings caught the eye of a gallery owner who came in for lunch. She slipped me her card and said, if you ever want to exhibit, call me. Your work. It feels like it's been through something. That night, I sat staring at the card on my table. My fingers trembled, my stomach knotted. I'd spent so long hiding that I forgot what it meant to be seen. When I told Ryan, he grinned. Then let them see you, he said. It's not that simple. He leaned forward, his eyes soft but unyielding. It never is. Do it anyway. There was something grounding about him. He never pushed, never demanded, but his words always lingered long after he was gone. So, I called the number, and just like that, A. Lewis, the name I thought was buried, began to breathe again. The night of the small gallery show, I almost didn't go. Fear sat in my chest like a stone. What if no one came? Worse, what if he came? But Ryan showed up at my door in a black shirt, holding a single white rose. For luck, he said, handing it to me. And because it looks like something you'd paint. He drove me there himself. The gallery was modest. Exposed brick, soft lights, the faint sound of piano music echoing against the walls. My paintings lined one section. Dark, abstract portraits of women with fire in their eyes. People whispered as they looked. I stood in the corner, heart pounding. Ryan leaned down and said, you don't need to hide. They're already looking. And they were. By the end of the night, 2 pieces sold. The gallery owner asked if I'd like to do a full exhibition next month. I felt dizzy, not with nerves but disbelief. That night, Ryan and I sat on a bench outside, watching the city lights flicker. "Feels strange, doesn't it?" he said. "What does?" "Winning quietly." His words settled deep inside me. Because that's exactly what I was doing, rising softly in a world that once crushed me. And for the first time, the idea of Ethan seeing this version of me didn't terrify me. Thrilled me. Success came slowly, then all at once. An article about my art appeared online. The Hidden Depth of A. Lewis. The piece went viral. They called my work haunting, emotional, born of survival. No one knew that survival had a name, Ethan Holt. But fate has a way of bringing ghosts back. 2 months later, I got an email from a major charity event organizer. They wanted to feature A. Lewis as one of the spotlight artists for their gala, hosted by the Holt Foundation. Froze. Ethan's last name. His company. His world. Ryan found me staring at the email for an hour. "You're thinking of saying no," he said quietly. "I can't walk into his world." He folded his arms. "Or you could walk in and remind him whose world it really was to begin with." I looked up at him, heart racing. "You don't understand what he did to me." Ryan's voice softened. "You're right. But I've seen what you've done to yourself since. Maybe it's time he sees it too." That night I didn't sleep. By dawn I'd made my decision. If fate wanted me to face him again, I would. But not as the woman he broke. As the woman he built without meaning to. The gala was everything Ethan used to dream about. Chandeliers, champagne, cameras. And now it was mine too. When I walked in, every flash of light caught on my silver dress. Ryan walked beside me, calm as ever, his hand lightly guiding me through the crowd. When I stepped onto the stage to present my collection, I heard a glass shatter somewhere in the audience. I didn't need to look to know it was him. That sound was familiar, the sound of something breaking. "Good evening," I said into the microphone. "My name is Mara Lewis. Some of you may have known me by another name, one that was taken from me." A ripple of murmurs filled the hall. Ethan's eyes found mine, wide, pale, disbelieving. Behind me on the screen I clicked the remote. Legal documents, contracts, and company transfers flashed behind me. The proof I'd uncovered from the USB drive I'd found hidden in an old file cabinet months before. "For years," I said, my voice steady, "my art and my name were used without my consent. But art, like truth, always finds its way home." Reporters swarmed. Adrian Holt, Ethan's business partner, looked livid. And Ethan? He looked like a man watching his empire burn in slow motion. I stepped down from the stage, walked right past him and whispered, "You didn't destroy me, Ethan. You designed me." Ryan was waiting by the exit. As we walked into the cool night air, he said softly, "You didn't just rise, Amara. You soared." And for the first time in years I believed him. The next morning my face was everywhere. Mara Lewis exposes corporate fraud at charity gala. Betrayed artist reclaims her name in shocking public reveal. My phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Emails, calls, interviews. Everyone wanted a piece of my story. But all I wanted was silence. I turned off every device and sat by the window of my apartment, watching the city hum below. It felt strange. The world finally saw me, yet I'd never felt more invisible. Then came the knock. Ryan stood there holding 2 coffees. He didn't say a word. Just handed me one and sat down across from me. "They're calling you a hero," he said quietly. "I didn't do it for them." "I know," he said. "But heroes rarely do." I laughed softly, bitterly. "Do you think he's scared?" Ryan met my eyes. "He should be." Later that day, Adrian Holt, Ethan's business partner, released a statement claiming Ethan acted alone, taking full advantage of company resources for personal gain. The board suspended him. Just like that, his kingdom cracked. But power never dies quietly. 3 days later, a headline appeared. Former partner claims artist was complicit in financial scandal. My stomach turned. Ethan had filed a statement saying that I willingly participated in the fraud, that the art, the investments, even the gallery shows were part of a joint plan gone wrong. He was trying to drag me down with him. Again. I remember throwing the paper across the room. Ryan caught it before it hit the floor. "Let him talk," he said. "Lies collapse under their own weight." I shook my head, tears burning behind my eyes. "You don't understand, people believed him once. They'll do it again." Ryan stepped closer, his voice steady. "Then show them what truth looks like." That night I released a video statement. I didn't cry, didn't plead. I told my story plainly, like someone who'd already been through the worst and survived it. I showed proof, emails, contracts, timelines. Within hours it went viral. Comments flooded in. "She's the definition of strength. Imagine stealing from someone like her, and thinking you'd win." But beneath the praise, I saw the other comments too. "She's lying. She knew. Maybe they deserve each other." It didn't matter how much truth I spoke. In the court of public opinion, pain is entertainment. Ryan held me as I cried that night. His words were simple, quiet. "Let them talk. The truth doesn't need their permission." A week later I got an email. No subject. Just a single line. "You really think this is over?" My hands went cold. For months he'd been nothing but a ghost, but now he was alive again, clawing at the edges of my peace. I showed Ryan. His jaw tightened. "He's baiting you." "Then let him starve," I said. But it wasn't that easy. Every night I'd check my inbox, half terrified, half waiting. He started sending pictures, old ones. Us laughing at the beach, dancing in the kitchen, kissing in the rain. Moments I tried to erase. Each photo came with a caption. "You looked happy then. You'll never find that again." I blocked him, changed my number. But the memories, they were harder to mute. Ryan stayed close. He started walking me home after events, staying late while I worked on new pieces. He never asked for anything, just existed beside me like gravity. And sometimes that was enough. One night I told him, "You're the first person who's never tried to take something from me." He looked at me for a long time and said, "That's because you don't owe me anything. You just deserve peace." I wanted to believe that peace was still possible. But part of me knew, as long as Ethan was out there watching, it wasn't over. The art world is fickle. 1 month you're the muse. The next you're a memory. But somehow I kept rising. My second exhibition, Phoenixes Don't Apologize, sold out before opening night. People called it raw, defiant, transcendent. But what they didn't see was the cost. Every brushstroke was a battle. Every piece was me scraping out what was left of my soul. Ryan noticed. "You're burning yourself out," he said one night. "I'm just painting." "No," he replied. "You're bleeding onto canvas and calling it art." I didn't answer. Maybe because he was right. But that exhibition changed everything. A major foundation offered to sponsor my next project, a worldwide collaboration for trauma survivors. They said my story had inspired thousands of women to reclaim their voices. I should have felt proud. Instead, I felt the weight of something heavier, the quiet dread that Ethan would never truly vanish. And I was right. It was nearly midnight when Ryan showed up at my door, eyes shadowed with worried. "There's something you need to know," he said. He placed a folder on the table. Emails, bank transfers, receipts. I scanned them, confused. "These are Ethan's," I said slowly. Ryan nodded. "He's been trying to buy your paintings, through fake collectors' shell accounts. He's still trying to own you." I felt the room tilt. "He can't stand that you've moved on," Ryan said. "He's obsessed. He's using middlemen to keep you tied to him." My knees went weak. "How do you know all this?" He hesitated. "Because I used to work with him. Years ago." It roared louder than any scream could. "He hired me as a consultant, long before you met. I left after seeing what he did to people. When I recognized you in that cafe, I didn't know how to tell you. My throat closed up. So you knew who I was all along? Yes, he whispered. But I stayed because I saw what he took from you, and I wanted to help you get it back. I wanted to scream, to hit him, thank him, to hate him, but all I did was whisper. You should have told me. He looked away. I was afraid you'd stop trusting me. And for once, I didn't want to be part of someone else's lie. The truth sat between us like glass, fragile, cutting, and impossible to ignore. After Ryan's confession, everything changed. It wasn't anger I felt first. It was silence. The kind that hums under your skin, He kept trying to explain, but his words came out like echoes, distant, hollow. I never lied about who I am now, he said softly, But the truth was he had. Not with words, with omission. And that kind of betrayal hurts more because it wears the mask of kindness. For days, I avoided him, I painted alone, slept little, less. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ethan's smirk, and now Ryan's eyes behind it. One night, I finally called him, Come over, I said. When he arrived, I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just said, tell me everything. And he did. How Ethan had used people, money, promises. How Ryan walked away after realizing what Lumos was built on. Lies and stolen work. I left before I knew about you, he said. When I saw you at the cafe, I didn't connect it at first. But when I did, I couldn't walk away again. I studied him quietly. Do you love me, Ryan? He hesitated, then said, I don't know if love is the right word. But I've never wanted someone to heal this badly. That broke something in me, not trust, not pain, something softer. Because for the first time I saw that maybe he was as broken as I was. 2 weeks later the threats began. It started with anonymous texts. You think you won? You'll lose everything again. Then came the phone calls. Heavy breathing. Every time my chest tightened like a fist. I changed my number twice, but it didn't matter. The ghosts find new doors. I went to the police, but without proof, they couldn't do much. Ryan insisted on staying with me for a while. I wanted to say no, but part of me was too tired to fight. One night, we were watching rain slide down the window when he said, He's unraveling, Amara. The more you rise, the more he falls. Men like him don't forgive that. I nodded slowly. Then maybe it's time to stop hiding. That night, I opened a blank canvas and painted something I hadn't dared to before. A man drowning in gold, reaching for a woman made of light who was walking away. When it dried, I titled it Closure. It was a Monday morning when the doorbell rang. I opened it, and there he was, Ethan. He looked nothing like the man I remembered. Thinner, paler. His eyes wild with the kind of desperation only failure breeds. Amara, he said, his voice shaking. Please. Just hear me out. Froze. My mind screamed to slam the door, but my body didn't move. Ryan stepped into view behind me, and Ethan's jaw clenched. So it's true, he sneered. You ran straight to my leftovers. Ryan didn't flinch. Leave. Ethan laughed, bitter. You think she's yours now. You think she's clean. You don't know what she did to get here. I felt something inside me snapped. Enough, I said, my voice steady. You don't get to twist my story anymore. You took everything from me, but you'll never take who I became because of it. He stepped closer, voice breaking. I loved you. No, I whispered. You loved control. Ryan took a step forward, but I stopped him. Let him see me, I said quietly. Let him see what he built when he tried to destroy me. Ethan's eyes filled with tears, not from remorse but rage. Then he turned and walked away. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like the quiet before another storm. The following week I woke to smoke. The studio, my sanctuary, was on fire. By the time firefighters arrived, it was gone. All of it. Every painting, every memory. Standing in the ashes, I felt my throat closed. Ryan wrapped his arms around me as I trembled. This was him, I said. It has to be. He nodded grimly. We'll prove it. But no cameras had caught him. No witnesses. Just the ruin he left behind. Reporters swarmed, calling it arson with motive. They wanted a reaction. I gave them nothing, because something inside me had shifted again. This time not toward rage but resolve. I realized something watching those flames. Ethan could burn my work, but not my hands. He could destroy the art but not the artist. He wanted me broken. I'd give him something worse, indifference. A month later, the police arrested Ethan. Not for the fire, they had no proof, but for financial fraud and tampering with company funds. Adrian Holt, desperate to save himself, turned in the evidence. When I saw the news, I didn't smile. Revenge never looks like fireworks. It looks like silence after years of chaos. Ryan and I went to the courthouse for his hearing. He tried to look at me as they led him in cuffs past the press, but I didn't meet his eyes. Side cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Ms. Lewis, do you forgive him? I puzzled. Forgiveness. That word used to feel like surrender. But standing there I realized it wasn't. It was freedom. I don't forgive what he did, I said softly. But I forgive myself for ever believing I wasn't enough without him. The crowd went silent. Ryan squeezed my hand. And just like that I was done being a victim. The story he wrote for me was over. I was writing my own now. After the trial, I thought I'd feel peace. But peace doesn't come right after the storm. It comes in fragments. Days passed where I couldn't even look at a blank canvas without shaking. It wasn't fear of painting again. It was fear of remembering who I was when I first started. Ryan didn't push me. He just stayed. Sometimes he'd bring me coffee, sit beside me while I stared at the emptiness where my art used to hang. He never said, move on. He just said, you're allowed to start over. And one morning I did. Not with a masterpiece. With a single stroke of color. It was uneven, messy, and small. But it was mine. I started painting every day. The strokes were shaky at first, then steady. The pain didn't disappear. It just turned into texture. And with each canvas I realized, what I'd lost had only cleared space for what I was becoming. 6 months later I held my first solo exhibition. The gallery lights glowed soft and warm, and the air carried the faint scent of varnish and new beginnings. Every piece in that room was born from ruin. Ash, fire, heartbreak, and resurrection. I named the collection Everything He Couldn't Steal. People came from everywhere. Collectors, artists, even critics who once ignored my name. They called it raw, fearless, divine. But I wasn't thinking about them. I was thinking about the girl I used to be. The one standing barefoot in her father's old shed, painting dreams she never thought anyone would see. When the crowd parted I saw him, Ryan, standing near the back, hands in his pockets, watching with quiet pride. He smiled, and I realized he wasn't my savior. He was simply the witness to my return. That night, when we got home, I whispered, "Do you ever think we were meant to find each other?" He smiled faintly. "No. I think we were meant to save ourselves. And meet once we did." And that was the most honest kind of love I'd ever known. 2 weeks after the exhibit, I received a letter. No return address. Just my name in familiar handwriting. Inside, a single line. "I'm sorry. I didn't know how to love you right. Signy." I read it twice. Then a third time. 4 years, I'd imagined the apology, the confrontation, the grand redemption. But when it finally came, it didn't feel like justice or closure. It felt like distance. Like a shadow fading. I burned the letter that night. Watched the flames curl around the edges until all that was left was ash. Not out of hate, but because I no longer needed proof that he'd been real. He was just another color in the painting that was my life. Dark but necessary for contrast. Success grew quietly. My story spread, interviews, features, a documentary proposal. People called me the woman who turned pain into art. But fame didn't tempt me anymore. I had seen how fragile admiration could be. Ryan asked me one evening, What's next for you? Smiled. Peace. Maybe a small studio by the sea. He laughed. You peaceful. I'll believe it when I see it. Then stay, I said. See it happen. And he did. We left the city soon after. No cameras, no noise. Just waves, silence and light. In that stillness, I painted my last piece for the series. A woman standing on the edge of an ocean, wind in her hair, eyes closed, no fear, only calm. I titled it Freedom. The night before the exhibition closed, I walked through the gallery one last time. The lights were dim, the walls bare except for one painting, the centerpiece. A woman standing beneath golden rain, her face tilted upward, eyes open, unbroken. I stood there remembering everything. The pain, the loss, the rebuilding. He had taken everything from me. My name, my work, my dignity. But he had given me something without knowing it. A reason to rise. I spoke softly to the empty room. You made me watch myself fall. Now you'll watch me rise. Behind me, Ryan slipped his hand into mine. You did it, he said. No, I whispered. I lived it. As we left, I looked back one last time at the painting, its gold glinting like firelight. And I realized, I wasn't the girl he broke. I was the woman who survived him. And survival, I've learned, is the most exquisite form of revenge.